We'll just give it a couple of minutes and then I'll just edit it. So whoever wants to do an intro. So this is our video for a practice marking based on the ISMGs. And I'm Jess, this is Celia, and this is Simon. And we're doing it for history.
Modern history.
Modern history. Okay.
So are we happy to go through step by step, starting with comprehending?
So,
who wants to kick off?
Alright, I'll go. So for comprehending, I gave a 2 based on the ISMG scale, just mainly because I felt a few terms were used out of context and their understanding of the sources were kind of misinterpreted away, so they made like an assumption on it. And so, for example, I found this in like paragraph 3 and 4, just to break it down a little bit.
I gave them a 3 for comprehending. I thought that I just saw in there that they had made a good attempt, a better attempt than a 1 or a 2 to do the comprehension. And I understand what you're saying. I understand that yeah, they're like terms were used out of context and things like that. But I thought their attempt wasn't too bad. So that's why I think I gave them a little bit of a higher mark for that. Yeah, but I see what you're saying, and probably I could bring it down to a 2. But I was like a low 3. Yeah.
Because you'd rather go up than
down. I just thought I'd give them a little bit of a break on that one. I thought that they, got a fairly good amount of it generally, broadly. Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. Like, I think they got to that benchmark of appropriate use, adequate explanation, reasonable understanding. Like, it didn't hit it out of the park, but it sort of got to that 3 level. And I think, like, for instance, in paragraph 2, there's a pretty decent link, connection of references to key figures and then later on key events. I just sort of got the impression that they had that kind of reasonable grasp of the issues and the sources.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to get down to that, partial or fragmented or,
Yeah, it was mostly the terms were okay. There were a few gaps, but
yeah. Well, I guess that's where I can say I was a bit more critical, being like a Unit 3.
Yeah.
They're in Year 12, they've learnt that foundational. But I guess I was a bit critical there, but that's right.
I mean, I was tossing up between whether it was, because there's rudimentary explanation versus adequate explanation.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of just hit that adequate level. So what do we think? Do we want to...
So I guess, based on this discussion, look, could be a bit flexible and I could go up.
Yeah, but you do make a really good point about it being Unit 3 and that maybe we should be expecting a little more at this stage.
But then, that being said, it is Unit 3, it's not like it's Unit 4.
Yeah, it's not the end, so they still have room to move. And also, if we needed to consider the student's background and what they've done previously, I know we don't have that in front of us right now, but if they were the kind of student who should have moved forward a bit more, or if this is a really good example for them and this is moving forward, do we give them that extra leeway?
Yeah, I'd say definitely extra leeway.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's going to go up to a 3 for me.
Okay.
Analysing? I'll start this one then. So analyse evidence from historical sources to show understanding that link to topic focus. 2. I gave this one a 2. Identification of features of evidence, examination of features of evidence, explanation about evidence. Yeah, I just thought that generally they did have fairly good analysis of the sources that they were provided with. They looked at each source and they addressed each source in the essay as far as I could see. What do you guys reckon?
Well, I think that I agree. I had 2 as well for that. I sort of feel like to get a 2, the way I interpreted the ISMG was that it didn't need to be like this intricate weaving through of like 6 or 7 sources, that there just needed to be effort showed that it brings together a range of sources.
Yeah.
Well,
And I thought it got to that.
yeah, see, I gave it a 2 as well. Like, extending off that, I always found like they identified the sources, but they didn't provide enough depth and enough connection to each of the sources, but then also linking back to the question that's asked in the first place, they kind of just stated briefly what the source was, but then never went into the why does it link to the essay question, because the essay question, I guess you can say, is the core of it at the moment and why they're analysing these sources. So I gave them a 2 as well.
Okay.
Cool.
So, well, I might kick off 3. So synthesising. Well, I gave a 2 for synthesising. I guess just feeding off our comments about analysing, I think it was the combination of information. It seemed to, the language of the ISMG, I think, really does apply. Justified the combination of information, justified reasonable decision, supported a basic historical argument, and used evidence from sources, but not necessarily much of a range of sources, which would thumb them up. So that particularly that criteria of basic historical argument, it was really, to me, it was really no, it wasn't anything further than a basic historical argument. As you say, Jess, like bringing together a few sources, well, not really bringing them together, sort of outlining a few sources and then saying like equals blah, but not in a particularly sophisticated way.
Yeah, I did the same. I did that as well.
Okay.
I did it 2 as well, basically. Primarily of like that they couldn't really synthesise an effective point around it. They just, like you said, stated what it was and then basic. Yeah, they could have gone into a lot more depth than synthesising a point from that.
Okay.
Evaluating? Should we go back to the same? Okay.
Yeah,
evaluating. So, evaluating evidence from historical sources, make judgments to the focused on. So, like you were saying before, linking it back to the original question was missing a bit. Like it wasn't explicitly there. It wasn't really well rounded. I did give them a 4 for this though, because when you look at the ISMGs, adequate judgment about usefulness or reliability, they did have that. They had some adequate judgment about the sources. The judgments used evidence from sources, and they were using the evidence from sources. They did. They mentioned the sources over and over and over again. They had a lot of the source referencing, which was great, and a reference to perspective and stimulus. And the judgments are appropriate and corroborated. I think that they did a fairly good job of including the sources and basically, validating why they'd use the sources and looking at them like together as well. What's that word? Collaborated.
Like synthesising it.
Into a little bit of a point.
Well, considering I actually agree with that completely, I gave evaluating a 4. Because they did make a judgment and discuss perspectives, and they pretty much hit all those benchmarks of the 4. Like, I think the only thing was these judgments are appropriate and corroborated. That's where I kind of question it. If I had to bring it down to a 3, that's where I would go. But I kind of wanted to be a bit more lenient with that one, because they did identify all the sources. They gave a shot at evaluating. It might not have been correct all the time, but they still gave it a shot. That was my main thing. That's why I gave them a 4.
I agree with most of those comments in the sense that I think it definitely hit those benchmarks of 3 to 4, but I actually gave it a 3 just because, similar to some of the other criterias, it seemed to, I felt that they just kind of hit it again, so there was a couple of, but I was tossing up between 3 and 4, it's sort of, it is difficult to make that call, but I felt that there were just a couple of moments, like in Paris 6, sort of like the way that they get to their judgments is just a bit sort of rudimentary. Like, talking about towards the end, sort of dismissing, like pulling together certain perspectives, but just sort of on a dime dismissing those perspectives. You know, they come from a sociological background, so they're likely to be focused on conveying generalisations. And then it's like, thus, it may be still argued that the Nazi Party remained keen to have sort of...
So kind of like highlighting key points, but then also dismissing really key points as well, like just having that selective key point,
But I mean, that's just one example. I mean, it's sort of, I don't know, it could definitely go either way. I don't know. Look, I think, given what you guys have said, I think there's definitely enough in there. Like there's that example and maybe one other, but I think there's enough. I'd be happy to put it up to a 4.
Sorry. Again, with what I was saying before as well about looking at the standard of work that the student has given us previously compared to now, if we want to give them, like if we can bump them a little bit, give them that extra bit of confidence to keep them going, because this isn't Unit 4, this is Unit 3, so they can keep working.
Yeah, there's still room for development.
Yeah, and if we can give them that extra bump for something small like that and give them that great feedback, that might help them.
Yeah, and there is a clear effort. They've definitely made an effort to pull together sources. It just it wasn't always done really well. Okay.
So the final ISMG was that
creating and communicating.
Creating and communicating, I was very, very harsh with. I gave a 2. Like, I felt like they could convey ideas, but they really need to have a bit more support in structure and grammar. Because I feel like there needs to be that clear, okay, this is the topic sentence, this is the why, and this is the concluding sentence kind of thing.
Their introduction was not introduction.
No, it wasn't at all. It was a mess. And I feel like with proper scaffolding and stuff in class, that could be easily addressed before Unit 4. But at this point, I'm sticking with a 2 because, I just didn't feel like it was up to scratch on that point, especially being Year 12, done essay writing through the entirety of high school.
And you can see with a lot of their writing that they have great grammar. They have all of the structure there to do it properly. And there are just bits that they've missed that they've just kind of. And I know that it was in an exam condition, 2 hours, but there were some bits that you were like.
You could have reviewed
that really quickly and gone and just fixed up one little thing there, and it would have been okay. But I was really not keen on the intro either. It was not good, so I gave them a 2 as well.
Yeah, me too. I agree with all that. I think the intro and the conclusion were very, very kind of rudimentary. Like just barely an intro, just barely a conclusion. And there's some issues with grammar, issues with formatting. No real linkages between the paragraphs.
And one of them was totally. I think was it one? Did I read one where it was totally? Like they've got they've started a new paragraph, but I don't know how they linked it to what they were saying before.
It's kind of
what
like
they were saying next. They don't.
Chucked it in there.
Just threw it in there.
So that could definitely come down to like the exam conditions and everything like that. But
I think there's
room for improvement.
Yes.
But there is definitely potential there based upon how they've attempted to structure it.
For sure.
But working on them with intros and conclusions is a great idea.
I mean, maybe they ran out of time. Like they were worried.
I kind of feel like they've done the body. But then come back to the intro and conclusion and kind of just try to go boom, boom, not realising how important they are.
I don't even think they did that actually. It seems to me as though they just threw something in at the start and then just forgot that they were going to fix it up. I need something here. I'm just going to throw this in and then I'll come back to it later in the next week. And then they didn't come back to it.
Like I feel like they could have.
At the time.
Totally. I mean, they could have definitely got to a 3. I think.
Absolutely.
But maybe they ran out of time. Maybe there was just a bit of sloppiness. Okay. So where do we come to then?
Alright, well I'm bumping up my comprehending to a 3.
Okay.
Yes.
3.
So have I convinced you guys of all of my...
No, I feel like you have a few good points. Like you're being very open-minded about it all. Whereas
just thinking
in
ahead
some
as well,
ways
to the progress of the student and positive reinforcement, trying to get them to see where they've done well, but get them to correct those things that they need to work on.
100%, yeah.
So we got to 13 out of 25.
Yeah. 13 out of 25.
Yeah. Good on you, student.
Cool. Good reviewing, guys.
Yeah. Thanks,
Great
Matt.
work.